Hi there, and welcome to the Surviving and Thriving in Residency podcast. I'm Charley Lowry, your host and director of GME Relations at PracticeLink. This show is all about exploring the world of graduate and undergraduate medical education. We'll dive into the real-life experiences, successes, and challenges faced by medical students, residents, and fellows, while also highlighting valuable tools to support you, whether that's financial planning, student aid, or the many free resources provided by PracticeLink. If you're thinking about med school, currently studying, or deep into residency or fellowship, this podcast is here to offer insights and support to make your journey a bit easier than those before you. I'm your host, Charley Lowry, the Director of GME Relations at PracticeLink. And today we have Karan Singh, who is a PGY2 at St. Louis University. Welcome to the program. I'm hoping you're going to give us some good information today.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the goal of our podcast is really to reach out to medical students and residents who might be listening and give them some words of wisdom and just talk about really the overall path that you've been on so far. Mm-hmm. And we'll talk a little bit about, where you're planning on going in the future and things like that. But let me ask you, what made you decide to choose this journey? What made you decide to be a physician?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So everyone says something similar about helping people, but from my standpoint, I grew up in a family of doctors. So my dad and my dad's family, they've incorporated that environment around me since I grew up. Okay. I just saw how rewarding it is to actually come and then kind of help someone else and kind of sacrifice your personal needs and do something for somebody else. And the smile at the end of the day that you give to the other person is priceless. So day in, day out, that's what I've been seeing since I was a child, and it's something that I gravitate towards, and I look up to my dad as an idol. So I kind of wanted to do something along those lines.
That's super nice. So now your dad is a practicing physician?
Yes.
And does he have a specialization or anything?
Yeah, actually my dad is a veterinarian.
Okay.
So I got to see kind of like the animal side.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Some of his relatives, they're in the medical field in terms of like the human side, if I can say that.
Yeah.
So some of them are internal medicine, OB-GYN. Mm-hmm. So I kind of got to see that side, and I decided to take more of a human medicine side than a veterinarian side.
And I'm sure you find similarities between the two, right? I mean, it's a lot of the systems and the organs are very similar in the same disease processes. And
that's right.
So let's talk about your start. So where did you complete your medical education?
So I went to medical school in the Caribbean, a school called Avalon University School of Medicine. It's in Curacao, one of the Caribbean islands. I started there. They had a 5-year program. It's an integrated program where they have 1 year pre-med, accelerated program, and then this 4-year medical program. They also have a 6-year program now, but when I started, it was a 5-year program. So we did 1 year pre-med, and that gets you ready for medical school. And then after that, it was 4 years. A year and a half was basic sciences, meaning we learn anatomy, physics, physiology, embryology, all those things you would learn in the beginning of medical school for basic sciences. And then we went on to do clinicals, which is the 3rd year of medical school. Mm-hmm. And then end off the 4th year with electives and other clinicals, and then you match.
Oh, nice. So where did you do your clinicals in 3rd year?
So how it works with Caribbean medical schools or foreign medical schools in general is depending on what school you go to, they have different rotation setup or clinical setup for you, and they have certain sites. Okay. So depending on the school, it will vary where the sites are. For my school, it was mostly in Illinois, Midwest area, mostly in Chicago. And then there was sites in Arizona as well as West Virginia.
Did you do any in West Virginia?
No.
Oh, too bad.
I know.
So our CEO and myself, we're both from West Virginia originally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got to work with several Avalon students. So a little bit about me that you probably don't know, but before PracticeLink, I worked for several years at a medical school, DO school.
Okay.
And I was working with years 3 and 4 in the hospital system. And we had didactics, we had, whatever tumor board, whatever we had. We also included all the students from Avalon. So I got to know quite a few of them. They were a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have some friends that are doing their residency at Marshall University in West Virginia.
It's a good school.
Yeah.
Leader in healthcare for sure.
Yeah.
There's a plug for Marshall University right there. They're doing great things and growing like crazy. So as far as Avalon, did you have any issues? How was it like your first year? Or did you have any struggles, anything like that you would share? Or if you look back on it now and could see yourself going through that, what would you tell yourself? Any advice or anything you'd change?
Definitely. I think the biggest thing that I struggled with was reaching out. I think going to a Caribbean school or just going to a foreign medical school in general, there's this perceived notion that there's not a lot of people out there to help you, but there's a lot of groups out there. Depending on how proactive you become, you can actually learn a lot from other people. My biggest thing was that I'm like, okay, I'm just going to study, pass, and then everything will be okay. But there's so many things that go on during medical school that you don't get to know about until you're in it. For example, like where to do your clinicals, thinking ahead how to study for these exams. You're studying for medical school, but you also have to study for the board exams, the USMLEs or the complexes. And those types of things never really thought about. And it's different when you have someone that's been through it and teaches you like an alumni. But I just never really reached out to too many people. So maybe it was just me being naive, but I learned. And then going back, I wish I did reach out to others. That way I would have kind of got a better sense of how to set myself up for a better, easier path.
Yeah, I feel like now, post-COVID, I feel like that might be more of an issue because I feel like a lot of medical students are struggling on their own because they're doing courses online and they're doing a lot of coursework at home now instead of in the classroom. And it used to be kind of a group effort, and post-COVID, it's kind of more of an individual effort.
Yeah, that's true.
So, yeah. What about when you traveled for your rotations? Was that included in tuition, or did you have to pay for that separately? I'm sure that was expensive to have to go somewhere and set up housing for. Yeah, did they help you with that, or how did that work?
Yeah, so rotations were kind of set up with our tuition. The tuition for pre-med was different than your basic sciences, which was different from your clinicals. So they had certain requirements for you to even go there, which is what I liked about this school, was that they kind of set a standard and they had very strict criteria for you to go to the next level. But when I did go to clinicals, they definitely set it up for us. So it wasn't that, some schools you don't have that, where you have to kind of like look out for preceptors or you have to find your own preceptors, which can be a struggle too, because if you're coming from a different country, you're not from here, how do you know if someone is good, or how can they help you become a doctor in this country, which is residency. So one thing with many of the Caribbean schools is that they're already set up.
Perfect.
Clinicals are set up, it's included in the tuition, and you have all these different sites which you can choose, and that's what I really liked. So it was kind of included in the tuition, and then when you got to electives, which is the fourth year, then you had the opportunity to kind of explore out. They had those main sites that I talked about, but then when you do an elective, you can do an elective with anybody.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be in Chicago. It doesn't have to be in Arizona or West Virginia. It could be in Maryland. It could be in Boston. It could be anywhere, as long as you got it set up. And it was also included in the tuition fee. They would cover around 4 weeks, depending on the rotation itself. And then after that, you would have to pay out of pocket. What also gravitated me towards going to this route, the Caribbean route, was, yes, it's money. In medical school is money in general. It's a lot of loans, student loans.
Sure.
But this is like more of a private school. So like it's kind of considered like a private school. Now some schools do have student loan forgiveness. Some Caribbean schools have student loan forgiveness, but not all of them do.
Sure.
So these are kind of goes up in the air, but many students here, according to the national stats, many medical students have around anywhere from $200,000 to $500,000 in debt. And then going to a Caribbean school, I didn't have that much debt as I would have expected. My debt wasn't that much, especially since I would also have to kind of figure some things out myself, such as lodging and figuring out my travel situation. And all ended up being a little bit more affordable for me to go this route too.
So that's good. That's really good news. Because you're right. I think average overall is $225, I think, or $240 maybe now. So that's average debt. So it's a lot. And then Did you come to St. Louis for an audition rotation in fourth year? Tell me about the whole process of finding a residency.
Residency is super tough, and everyone says that their specialty is really competitive, or I think residency in general is really competitive. And if you're coming from outside school, like a Caribbean school or foreign medical school, it's definitely more competitive for you. In general, getting into residency was just broad. That's what I learned. I applied to residency initially in internal medicine. I did internal medicine, I applied in internal medicine, I matched internal medicine, and then after internal medicine, I decided, hey, I want to do something different. I've always wanted to do interventional radiology, which is what I'm currently doing in St. Louis. So I decided to take that step during my residency in internal medicine to apply to another residency, and then I basically matched here. I liked the city, I liked the people, I liked the program, and it was only good things about this place, so that's why I decided to come here.
Oh, that's good. And so when you first applied for the internal medicine residency, how many residencies do you think you applied for? Do you know a number or an average?
According to many of the mentors and people that I've spoken to in the past, being a foreign grad is a little bit more challenging. I think I applied to 120 programs, and that was my goal about it. And I'm like, you know what, I'd rather apply broad. I didn't have a geographical preference either, because they started doing this new thing where they want you to have a geographical preference, and then they kind of filter out students for applications, but I didn't really have a geographical preference. So I got a good amount of interviews, 36 interviews, and then they were all across the country, Northeast, West, South, Midwest.
A lot of places you'd never been to?
No,
right?
Never.
Never, okay.
So that was also a challenge, going to a new area and then
having to research it, right, and find out about it, right?
Exactly.
Because you don't want to just move there without knowing about the community, right?
That's right, yeah. I don't have family all across the country, but I do have family in the Midwest, so I just decided from my standpoint I wanted to just learn, and I'm a very academic guy, so I just chose the programs based on what I thought would give me the best education. I went to University of South Alabama for internal medicine, and I was there for 2 years, had a really good time, learned a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
So then what happened at the end of those 2 years, and how did you find St. Louis?
So coming to St. Louis, originally I wanted to do this new program, interventional radiology. As many people may know, it's a very competitive specialty. And being a foreign grad, I just was discouraged from it in the beginning, actually. So I never really applied for it. And when I was doing my rotations as a fourth year, it was around COVID time, so I didn't get too much exposure to this specialty in general. And that's a typical theme you see in this specialty. Not a lot of medical students get exposure to interventional radiology, so they don't have a good, strong application or letters of recommendation. So when I was applying, I reached out to some mentors and some people I met at South Alabama, and they kind of told me about really good places that they think would best fit my personality. So they told me about St. Louis and St. Louis University, and they told me about my program director, and they said that I would probably be a perfect match there. So I applied, and I love the things they do here, and the people are great, energy is amazing, and I can't be more happy.
It's such a good place, right? St. Louis University is just great overall.
It's a great place. Amazing people, a lot of cultural diversity. Food's great. You meet some really nice people. It's in the Midwest, and it gets cold, but not really cold.
Housing's affordable.
Oh, yeah, very affordable.
Yeah.
That's one thing I did notice. It's very affordable.
So cost of living's not bad here.
No, not at all. Especially if you're making average salary, or if you're even working part-time, you can easily afford an apartment. Depending on how you do it, some students live together, so they get a house and they split the rent. I know some travelers that come to work, travel nurses and some doctors that travel, and they just share a condo or a house from Airbnb. They pay anywhere from $500 to $800 a month, and everything's included, so it's very affordable.
That's so nice. Such a huge medical community here, so lots of options for sure.
Definitely.
Physicians, only want to be contacted by recruiters who know your specific professional interests? Simply call and speak with a PracticeLink physician specialist, and we'll help you create your free profile and pair you with only the job opportunities that you're interested in. Visit PracticeLink.com to get started today.
So now you're cruising along, and how much longer do you have?
I have 4 years.
It's not too bad,
Yeah.
right? That's not too bad. It's a lot, but it's not too bad to be able to do what you want to do.
That's
It's worth
right.
it. Yeah.
I think it's good. It could be longer. I chose the integrated route, which saves me a year. Total program length is 6 years.
Okay.
So I'm in my second year now, so I got 4 more years.
One thing I always ask is first year of residency, I know you're working very long hours. You don't have a lot of time. There's not a lot of work-life balance. So tell me about that. Tell me how you were your first year. Do you remember just being down a lot, or how did you manage what little time you had off? How did you manage that, and how did you manage just to stay upbeat and keep going?
I think everyone handles the first year differently. It's not easy by all means. First year residency is tough. It doesn't matter what you do because there's a really big learning curve. Even if you went to, let's say, the best medical school in the country, residency is just residency. There's things that you will do as a medical student that you will never do as a physician or as a resident. You just have more responsibility. You have all this weight on your shoulders to take care of a patient.
I cannot imagine. I mean, because in medical school, you're in a school, you're kind of sheltered. You know, you're kind of in a group atmosphere. You know your classmates and you know your daily routines, and you see the same people, and it's a lot of just learning, but not a lot of hands-on, right? So
Correct. And then when you get a call at like 7 p.m., 6 p.m., hey, my patient's blood pressure is this, or something's going wrong with the patient, it's your responsibility. So that's a lot of responsibility. So the thing that I did was I try to stay active. So I would go to the gym. I like to stay physically fit. I believe a healthy body feeds a healthy mind. It was good for my mental health, so I would try to find time to go to the gym, even if it's once a week, twice a week, a morning run, a run after work. Also, I would try to eat healthy. I know everyone's going to probably debate about this.
Cafeteria food. Right.
I would try to eat healthy as much as I could. And then obviously I had really good mentors. One thing I did learn was that when I was really struggling, when I was in the dark and I felt like my world was upside down, I would go to my mentor, and she was amazing. I was my program director at South Alabama, and she kind of helped steer me in the right direction. And my maladaptive thinking, everyone has this burden or a curse of being a doctor or going into this route where you think you're not good enough. But everything gets better when you have someone you can lean over or kind of talk to. You guys come up with a plan. And if it's too much to do, you have your coworkers. I believe that everyone matches or goes to a certain place for a reason. I never thought I would go to South Alabama. Once I went there, I got along with everybody, and it actually became like my home. So then if I was ever in trouble or I wasn't feeling well, I would reach out to my friends. I would be open about the way I feel rather than kind of sheltering myself. And I would also have hobbies. That's one thing that first year takes away from you. I feel like there's this greater responsibility, like in the Spider-Man movie, with great power comes great responsibility. I mean, it is true, but at the same time, you got to take care of yourself. My mentor told me that you can't really take care of patients if you can't take care of yourself first. So I would sometimes try to prioritize my well-being and my health first. So I would play pickleball, or I started picking up pickleball, and I would also go hang out with friends, do things that I wouldn't previously do, and it actually became something that became a hobby, something that would help me de-stress.
That's so good. That's just an important topic always. Even medical students, I've worked with medical students so much, and something like a board failure can just throw someone into just the worst turmoil, even though it's not the end of things by any means, but a board failure can just throw someone into turmoil. And I do hear a lot of residents mention their first years somewhat lonely. I mean, not a lot of sleeping, but you're working and sleeping. That's your life, and trying to eat when you can. So how about rotations? What was the one that was the hardest to get through, or what was the one that was the most draining? Do you know?
My rotations, the one that was probably most draining, they all had their own thing, but I think the one that was really straining for me was the surgery rotation. I'm pretty sure many medical students going through a surgery rotation would agree that the mornings are very early. The evenings are very late.
Yep.
So 5 a.m. mornings, you would have to see your patients, and then you come, and then after surgery is a very different personality. You need to have a certain personality or a culture, I have a lot of respect for surgeons. It is a very demanding field, and me doing that rotation was definitely a lot for me. Sometimes the procedure or a surgery would last 8 hours. As a medical student, I want to learn. So I would want to be there for 8 hours, and then sometimes surgeons would step out for a little break, and I would be in there assisting, but it would become a lot. So it was mostly physically taxing and then stressful, and then I have to come home, study, prepare for my surgery shelf exam, which you have to do in medical school. It became a whole thing. So I think that, and I learned a lot from surgery. I learned a lot, but it was very mentally and physically draining on my body.
So far with residency, anything that you look at there that you would do differently, even with the application process or with the interview process, or is there anything with residency you would do different so far?
I think for residency, what I would do different is I want to study so much. So this is one misconception that I had, is when people match, it's usually in March. Students find out that they match. Then you have March till July to like either move across the country or just change your life basically. My thing was that, wow, like I matched into the specialty, I gotta know everything about it. For day one, it's gonna be crazy. And I remember my day one, it was crazy. And then there were so many things I didn't know. And the one thing I think I was kind of hard on myself about was that I need to know everything. And I think many people think that they need to know everything, but the people you work with, like your attendings or your preceptors, the other doctors, even the nurses, the ancillary staffs, everyone knows that it's July. New residents are here, and they don't expect us to know anything. So my biggest thing was fear of not knowing.
It's that fear of being called on, right? And
Exactly.
you don't know the answer, right? Or you're going to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But they expect nothing from us. So we got this far for a reason, but at the same time, residency itself is training. So we're going to learn everything that we need to learn from our attendings and how a doctor thinks and how everything's done. It's going to be learned through those years. So once you match, just take it easy and not really study during those months, because those are probably the months that before first year that you're going to have the most amount of time. Enjoy it, spend time with your family, say bye to your family if you're from a different country, and kind of take it from there. So that's one thing I would have changed before residency.
Yeah. You're in good contact with your family? Yeah.
So I'm originally from Canada.
Okay.
Niagara Falls.
Not too far?
No,
okay.
Not too far. First time when July happened, I didn't see my parents for about 6-7 months. My parents and my brother, they live in Canada, and I have 2 dogs that I dearly love, Rambo and Bella. So
that's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It was really lonely, like you were saying. You're in this new place, new environment. You're just work, trying to fit in. So it became really hard, but I always had them on speed dial. You know, if I needed something, I would definitely reach out to them. So they were always very supportive, which is something that I always appreciated. But it was hard being away from family. And some people, they can't stay away from family. They match or they choose to work in an area that is close to family, and I completely get it. It's really important to be close to family.
It is important. And the majority of residents I talk to, when I ask them where they want to land geographically, the answer is almost always, I want to go home. I think family is extremely important, of course. And then there are times, too, where I want to say, okay, well, maybe branch out a little bit. Maybe now's the time to go live in New York City for a while and, try something new. But most of them do want to go home.
Yeah, I definitely agree with them. I have a lot of family in the Midwest, not too far from St. Louis, about an hour drive up north, so near the Chicago area. It's great being close to family. They're a great pillar for support.
So true.
Yeah.
And so speaking of support, so your first year of residency too here at St. Louis, how is that? Is there a lot of activities that you guys do, or like outside of work? Do you guys socialize some? And I mean, how is that?
I am very fortunate to be with a really good group of residents. St. Louis, I mean, even the university, they constantly send us emails about events going on, especially with you guys too, at PracticeLink. Like, I've attended a few of your guys' events. It's amazing. There's a lot of socialization here. That's one thing I definitely realized. It's a very social city. Yes. Even though it's a mid-sized city, it feels like a big city vibe.
So much to do, right? Yeah.
There's a lot to do, and the people that I'm with, they kind of embody that type of vibe. They're very outgoing. After work, they're always trying to see if we want to catch up with dinner, if we want to have lunch over the weekend. And then with the program I'm in, we constantly have monthly, sometimes bi-weekly journal clubs at restaurants. We go to sushi, we go to Mediterranean places. Sometimes we go to bars, restaurants, and it's a good time.
That's good.
Everyone's very open and they're very friendly, so.
It's so important. I was just talking to our CEO, Ken. We were just talking about the Cardinals games. And,
oh, my God.
Yeah, and we're very blessed. We have the sweet tickets for City Soccer and for Cardinals as well. And we look at it as kind of giving back to you guys for all the work you do and for the residency coordinators and directors and physicians as well. But we really do like to focus on you guys and just let you have an evening away from work where there's no pressure and you can bring a family member and just kind of hang out at the ball field and just so much fun.
So when I first met you, my first time going out in St. Louis was at a Cardinals game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was at the Cardinals game. I think it was the Cardinals versus Rangers. And I've never actually been to a baseball game before.
Okay.
So that was my first baseball game. And my program director took me with everyone from that department. And we had a really good time. We had hot dogs with St. Louis hot dogs. We had food. We had some grub. It was a really good time. And then when we were all doing orientation, we had another draw. It was like a draw for a Cardinals game. And I won that draw again. I went to 2 Cardinals games back to back. The culture here is really nice.
That's good.
It's very sportsy culture. So
yeah, we do a drawing during orientation at SLU and give away Cardinals tickets. And the end of orientation week, we take residents to a game. And a lot of international medical graduates have never been to a Cardinals game or any Major League Baseball game and really don't know the rules. So it's fun to explain how the game works and all of that. And I think, that's something else we touched on was first-year residents and that loneliness and what have you. And so by taking first-year residents to a game like that, and it's a very close group, close quarters there, I guess, the seating and everything. Everybody meets everybody, so it's a great way for them to connect. So I feel like maybe we've helped some residents who really don't have family or friends, don't know anybody who have come to St. Louis, and they get to meet 17, 18 other residents. It helps them connect,
Yeah, I've connected with a lot of people here. I've never thought I would make so many friends. It's only been 5 months that I've been in the city, and I already made a lot of friends. I'm so blessed to be here.
That's so good to hear. That's really good to hear. What do you think is next for you? So you've got all these years left for residency. What do you see in your future?
I think in the future, I want to basically have a family. I obviously want to settle down in somewhere like a midtown city. Not too big, but not too small. I really like St. Louis. It's really growing on me. So I'm thinking maybe St. Louis, honestly. But I still have 4 years to kind of decide that.
Do you think about academics?
Yes, yes.
I knew it. I knew it. That you would be good. Yeah, you'd be great.
Yeah, I love academics. It's just, I love the environment, the culture. Going into like a private practice, it's mostly just about just getting your job done at the end of the day. But being in academics, the teaching, the environment, the didactics, learning from others, that's the reason I love academics, is because every day we learn. I know attendings that have been practicing for 40 years, and to this day, they tell me they're learning. It just never ends, and medicine is this field where every day we come up with a new innovation or a new discovery or new type of drug, and it just can be applied into many different ways. So the learning never stops, and if the learning never stops, my brain doesn't get tired.
Yeah.
I like it.
When I would look for preceptors for the medical students, I would always tell the preceptors, if you want to stay on your toes, take medical students on rotations.
Yeah.
It's a good way for them to gain knowledge too, because the medical students are always on top of things.
That's right.
Sometimes they can bring that knowledge in and give it to somebody who's been practicing for years and haven't heard of some new procedure or some new whatever, So that's how I would convince them. I'd be like, you want to stay on your toes, stay sharp.
Yeah.
And you have to have a medical student with you. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, it does. It helps.
Physicians, have you finished training and now you're job hunting? PracticeLink.com's Resource Center is packed with free tools to help. From creating your CV, interview prep, and even tips to ace that site visit, we've got you all covered. Visit PracticeLink.com's Resource Center today, and while you're there, create your free account to connect with employers and view exclusive job opportunities.
as we kind of wrap up a little bit. Let's do 3 advice you should give to somebody, that's considering going to medical school.
I think going into medical school, you should know that realistically they make a lot of money, but don't do it for financial reasons. That's my biggest advice. Do it for the reason that would make you want to do it for the rest of your life. For example, I would suggest that someone going to medical school actually go and shadow somebody in a field that you may want to do is definitely something that you should do. I know there's a lot of fields out there and there's so many different specialties and they just keep on going and there's new specialties coming out every year. But just kind of getting a general idea of the field of medicine, what it means to be a doctor and what it means to go through medical school is something that you guys should really kind of consider. It's a marathon. It's not a quick journey. It never ends in 4 years. And you have
It's so true. Yeah.
You got to go through residency then, and then like, oh, wow, I actually like this specialty. So then you want to do a fellowship, and then you're thinking about a fellowship, and then you also have a life yourself, and you're a certain age, and then you're starting to think about getting married, having children. So all these things play into...
Making money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Making money. So all these things have a factor in deciding whether or not medical school is right for you. So it's a long journey, but it's a rewarding journey. That fact of delayed gratification definitely comes with medicine. Every day I love it. So I don't regret my choice, and I hope that whoever's listening to this can kind of get some advice from our talk here.
So how about advice for residency, whatever it may be, whether it's first year or how to hang in there or how to stay steady or how to succeed or make connections, anything?
Biggest thing for me, if I have to give you guys advice, residency is tough. It's not easy for anybody. So my advice is take it easy. You've come this far. If you're already applying to residency, you've already made it so far. So give yourself a pat on the back. And I would just say spend time with your family, spend time with people you love, because when you do residency, you're going to be, technically residents are supposed to live in the hospital. That's why they called it residency.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be really spending too much time with your family. I would say that before you start residency, go to conferences. That's the best way to make connections. Put yourself out there. Don't be shy. Everyone loves talking to each other. And believe it or not, medicine is a very small field. It doesn't matter if you're in internal medicine or if you're in a specialty. Everyone is connected in some way.
Yes.
So meeting someone could actually change your life. And that's what happened with me. You know, I went to a conference one time, a radiology conference in Chicago in 2018. And that's where my love for radiology started.
Yep.
I just went to a conference. I met a really good person. They kind of showed me a lot about what they do. And I was just blown away. And this all started because I kind of reached out to them at a conference. They were presenting something. So go put yourself out there. Don't be afraid of what other people may think, and make connections.
That helps me out too. So when I travel the country to visit residents, I talk to them about finding their first practice.
Yeah.
Right. And I always try to give them good tips and advice. And one thing that I tell them every single time is go to conferences. If you can afford it, and I know that it's not always affordable, but a lot of times you can find someone to go with to share the cost of a hotel or lodging or food, or try to seek out sponsorship to get you to the conference. But they're just the most valuable thing, really, in a lot of ways. I urge residents even to go to conferences, visit the exhibit halls. The exhibit halls sometimes will have 100 hospitals in there, right? Some of the best hospitals in the country are there with recruiters or with physicians that work there. And you just never know who you're going to meet. You're exactly right. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what lecture is going to move you. But I just think that's so crucial. It is a very small world. The medical field, you're right. I mean, everybody knows everybody. It's amazing how small the group is. The other thing that I tell them is don't burn bridges.
Yes,
Right?
Absolutely.
When you go on an interview, whatever it is, and you meet physicians, you meet faculty, don't burn bridges. Play it through. Even if you know in the first 5 minutes, I do not want to be here, play it through like it's the best thing ever. Send your thank yous, because you don't know who they might know as well.
Exactly.
Right?
I've heard a lot of stories.
Yeah.
A lot of stories. I've been on the interview panel too a few times. It's very easy to burn a bridge, so always be respectful to everybody.
Yeah. It's very easy to burn a bridge, and it's very hard to build that back.
Exactly.
So I think that is it for this episode. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We'd love to have you back. If you ever want to come back on, we could talk GME stuff forever. There's a million things, and being an international medical graduate, I think, is just such a great topic, and it's going to help a lot of listeners just because there's a little bit extra you have to go through. But we do appreciate you, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.